Yesterday, I talked about how the brain and consciousness interact and how they in turn can help us interact with the phenomenon and the greater phenomenon. Well, I also put forward the theory that our brain is really the filter of our consciousness. And it turns out that I'm not the only one saying that. So let's talk about that. So get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. The next two videos were sent to me by Nico. So thank you so much, Nico. I really appreciate that. He was able to find these two possible pieces of corroboration for the idea that the brain is a filter for our consciousness. This is Dr. Bruce Grayson, who has studied near-death experiences for over 30 years. So let's give a listen to what he has to say.
And I was taught in medical school that the brain creates the mind. All our thoughts and feelings are created by these nerve cells. And that seems to work in everyday life. For example, when you get drunk, you don't think very well. Or when you get hit on the head, that affects your thinking. But in extreme circumstances, like near-death experiences, the brain seems to be shutting down, and yet people report that their thinking was clearer and faster than ever. Their perceptions were sharper than ever. And that shouldn't happen if the brain is shutting down. And there are other examples besides near-death experiences in which we see this dissociation between the brain and the mind. For example, with psychedelic drugs, we used to think that the way these drugs work is by stimulating the brain to hallucinate. But neuroimaging studies in the last 10, 15 years have shown repeatedly that the more elaborate mystical experiences people have with psychedelic drugs are associated with a decrease in brain activity, not an increase. So again, it appears that when the brain is shutting down, consciousness seems to flower. And we don't have any explanation for why that should be.
I do. And of course, he's getting to that too. The brain seems to be a filter for our consciousness. It does not create consciousness. It filters out our consciousness. I guess allowing us to exist in this 3D or 4D reality. Fascinating stuff. And here is more evidence of that from Jeff Kripal on Danny Jones. And Jeff Kripal is a professor of philosophy and religious thought at Rice University. All right here in Texas. Nice.
People in my world, at least since William James and probably earlier than him, people like Frederick Myers and way back, essentially argued what was called the filter thesis, or what we call the filter thesis today. And this essentially says that the brain is certainly mediating these states of consciousness, but it's actually not producing them. And so what you want to look for is instances in which the brain is being shut down, because then other things can flow in. In a filter thesis, the brain is a filter. You're shutting most things out so that you can eat things and survive and reproduce and in a kind of Darwinian sense. And so what you want to look for is when does the brain shut down? And of course, psychedelics is a great way to shut down brain processes. Meditation is a great way to shut down brain processes. Car wrecks, lightning strikes, you can go on, but every instance of this shutting down the brain is probably going to be traumatic to the person unless you can integrate it into the ritual of the system, which is I think what meditation is. So I think it matters a great deal. What I'm trying to say is it matters a great deal how you understand the relationship between brain and consciousness, or brain and mind. And I think the reigning scientific model is certainly the production thesis. And so when the brain shuts down in death, guess what? Consciousness just blips out like a light bulb, because the material base has ended.
Right.
But in Elizabeth's view, and I think in Whitley's and in a lot of these experiences, that actually doesn't actually end consciousness. So clearly consciousness is not dependent on brain processes. Clearly it's something else is going on, and that's where this filter thesis comes in. And you can call it transmission thesis, you can call it all kinds of things, but it's essentially a different understanding of how the brain and the mind are related.
Yeah, and so, don't do drugs, meditate, guys. But yeah, fascinating stuff. Okay, now this is from Ralph Ellis, a viewer on the channel who sent me an amazing near-death experience that he had. And he posted a brilliant comment on the channel yesterday, and he's given me permission to read that to you. It's a longer comment, so I'll just read part of it. But allow me to share some of the wisdom that he was able to bring back from the other side. He says, the brain was described to me as a bust experiential constrictor facilitator. I know that sounds woo, but it is what it is. Think blue avatars, but one that pares down your greater self to meaningfully experience this domain. Think, if I want to live like a trout, I can't bring along my human brain. Our physical minds serve as a frequency bus for our larger consciousness to deeply experience this iteration. Our bodies permit interaction with this domain. The earth in this plane are one of an uncountable amount of parallel iterations. We, our consciousness, are dragged along the static expansion of all causality, which presents itself as an imperceivably complicated framework jutting off in millions of directions. What this means is that every causal fork where iterations deviate, our behaviors traverse the appropriate line, but not always. There are imperfections with this system. When iterations become nearly imperceivably different, the system simply merges them via convergence. This saves overall system energy consumption to maintain iterations. This is why there are absolutely people who existed in a universe with a monocled Monopoly Man, cornucopia Fruit of the Loom emblem, Nelson Mandela dying in prison, and his wife wearing a beautiful dress as she cried alongside his car, the Mandela effect. In my NDE, I was told I was something akin to a tinkerer, endlessly poking my fingers in other engineers' hard work. So yeah, and he goes on, and you can go back to that comment on the, the video I made called "The Brain, Consciousness, and UFO Contact." Let's discuss to read his full comment. But I thought that was really brilliant, and it definitely ties in with what we're discussing today. And, a really interesting description of how that works. So, but he's not the only one saying that either. This was sent to me by Dennis. So thank you very much, Dennis. I really appreciate that. This is an article that Deepak Chopra wrote. And he was talking about Sir James Jeans, the noted English astronomer physicist, who wrote, "The universe begins to look more like a great thought than like a great machine. Mind no longer appears to be an accidental intruder into the realm of matter. We ought rather to hail it as the creator and governor of the realm of matter." If time travel dropped this quote into the laps of the ancient Vedic rishis or seers of India, they would have instantly agreed, says Deepak Chopra. Jean's insight wasn't that we live in a conscious universe, but that mind consciousness is the creator and governor of the physical world. Suddenly the topic becomes personal because your brain is a physical object, and what Jeans declares is the opposite of what neuroscience believes. Neuroscience believes that matter creates and controls mind. Most brain researchers would even claim that brain equals mind. Jeans, echoing not just Vedic philosophy but Planck, Heisenberg, and Schrödinger, is saying that your brain doesn't create your mind, nor do brain cells think, feel, or have experiences. Consciousness does all of that, with the brain responding as a physical instrument the way a piano responds when a musician sits down to play. No one would claim that a piano knows music, and since brain cells are made of organic chemicals the same as the wood in a piano is made of organic chemicals, there's no logical reason to suppose that rearranging organic chemicals in a super complex way inside the human brain gave them the gift of mind. As one wit put it, to say that we have a mind because our brains are so complex is like saying that if you add more cards to a deck of playing cards, it will know how to play poker. Then I'll let you read the rest of the article at your leisure. But here we get again thoughts on the brain and consciousness in relationship to the universe itself. So I really believe that there is a lot to that theory. That seems to be what I found in my own experiences and what I've read about in many other experiences and listened to many other experiencers' accounts, where our brain seems to act as a filter for consciousness. But in meditative states or with the help of psychedelics, which you shouldn't have, then you can achieve these states of consciousness, shutting down your brain, I guess, so that you can interact with your greater self and your greater consciousness. Now, is that what we should be doing? Because there is an argument, I guess, that we come here into this reality to experience this reality, and we put this filter there for a reason. But this reality kind of blows, guys. I think that maybe a way to make this reality better is to get back in touch with our higher selves and make this reality, this dimension, reflect a little bit more of what is available on the other side. Experiencers talk about the divine love and the goodness that they experience on the other side. Wouldn't it be nice if we could bring some of that over into this reality? It works for me, guys. It works for me. But near-death experiencers debate a lot about the reason why we come into this reality. And a lot of them, I would say a majority of them, seem to indicate that they believe this reality is a school, that we incarnate here to learn lessons. But others say that we actually come in here to experience this reality. Getting back to Ralph and the wisdom that he brought back from the other side, he says, one of the best things people in this iteration can do is learn themselves and experience the beauty of their agency. The gift of this experience is to self-define and know we are not here to serve others. We are here to experience the beauty of volition, while doing our damnedest not to impede other agencies, so long as we do not harm one another. So exercise your free will. We're here to exercise our free will, Ralph says, just as long as we're not impeding the free will of others. And that's what I have come to believe as well. But, there's room for debate. Ralph goes on, we all dream of what it would be like to live as other beings, and the great irony is, here we are living as other beings. It turns out when you get into the iteration to fully experience it deeply as that being, you must be temporarily truncated from knowledge of greater self. This is also a school, Ralph says. It is a school, he says. It's also a school. In upper domains, the do's and do-nots are absolutely known, but what is difficult to impart to the newer agents are the whys. I know some religious types and skeptics are going to try and be reductive, and I expect it. I hope their experience is fulfilling. Well, me too. But yeah, some fascinating thoughts on consciousness, and if we are souls that come into this reality, how does our brain interact with that? Should we try to interact with that? I certainly plan to keep on attempting to interact with that, and to bring as much of the goodness on the other side as I can into this reality. However, I am mindful that I may have come into this reality to experience limitations and also to experience separation from source, to express my own individuality. In the higher dimensions, we seem to get a lot of mind-to-mind communication, even to the point of creating civilizations that are almost hive mind or hive mind-like. And at the even higher dimensional levels or density levels, we run into collective consciousnesses. So it seems like the further down in dimensions you go, possibly, the more likely you are to be individuated and to be able to express your own individuality and to experience individuality in a disconnection from the higher dimensions. But the problem with that is that this dimension kind of blows. So, but those are just my thoughts. Again, I will continue in my own experiments to try to bring the good parts of the other side over and make my world as magical as I can, while at the same time not sacrificing my free will, certainly not impeding the free will of others. But let me know your thoughts on the brain being a filter for consciousness and how we can best interact with this reality. Let me know what you think about that. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, links below. Love to see you guys there. If you wanted to support Cosmic Road in an even bigger way, please consider grabbing a coffee mug or a t-shirt in the merch store, or by becoming a channel member. Channel members are rock stars, and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you. Meanwhile, there are plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.